Appalachian Creative Podcast, Episode 1.
Hey, I'm Jerry Buckner, and this is
Jacob Holmes.
And this is the Appalachian Creative Podcast, a haven for small-town filmmakers to gather all the information needed to navigate the landscape right now in West Virginia and Appalachia. Jacob, tell us a little bit about the podcast from your perspective.
So I think the best thing about this podcast is that we are reaching out to all of those that are not in the traditional film markets, where we're trying to get to what most of the country is in these smaller towns where you don't have access to LA, Houston, Atlanta style film markets, creative markets. I don't want to say film markets because this is for everybody. This is for all photographers, actors, filmmakers, and everything in between. So cast, crew, it doesn't matter.
Getting through some of those gates is a real problem early on, especially when Yeah, I mean, for sure. Now, we're starting to see some more of those productions come to West Virginia. Absolutely. We're starting to see more money come in, and that's going to give opportunities to help expand those, not just film opportunities, but production opportunities. And I'm excited about the potential there with all of the hard workers here in West Virginia. Being able to utilize that spirit of being able to come together and work on a project all the way to completion.
Yeah. And part of the reason of that is the local government, or state government for these Appalachian regions. West Virginia is getting a lot more film productions because of its tax incentive, which we'll get into that at a later date. But it just goes to show that a lot of everything kind of trickles down from the leadership. Well,
that commitment from our legislature, the commitment from the people who are allocating money and resources. I think as we can continue to show that there is a group of people that are able and willing and wanting to do this, I think that you'll be able to pull those resources a little bit easier. I think that overall in Appalachia, there's a lot of potential for, an A24 type of studio.
Right.
That big market. But tell me a little bit, or tell the audience a little bit about how you got into the small market videography.
Well, it's funny that you brought up A24. That's kind of what I envisioned for my company. I own two companies. I own Eagle Eye Productions, which is a for-profit, obviously, videography, filmmaking company. But I also own the Film Horizons Foundation, which is a nonprofit for education, development, and collaboration between all types of creatives. We have the Tri-State Film Club, which is an awesome club. We get together once a month and just really learn film, and we learn from those that are really doing it. Like this month, we're looking at Christopher Nolan and Oppenheimer. We're recreating a scene from there. So it's all about education, all about development, and helping those people that want to get into the market or get into the industry a way to do so, much like this podcast.
For sure. Now, it's not everybody has the opportunity to just start a film studio.
Right.
What was kind of your first step into breaking into? Did you always want to be a director? Or?
No, I started in drones. That was I was Eagle Eye Aerial when I first opened. I got hired to do a documentary, and then fell in love with the filmmaking process. And the documentary was cool. It was from the air entirely because I was a drone company. And I did some folly out there while I was filming. Like, it was just a cool experience. Came home and began the process of rebranding to Eagle Eye Productions, where I do everything. Part of something that might make me different from other creatives is I do videography and film that I write and produce and all that. So that kind of intertwines.
Now, that distinction between videography and filmmaking, I like to say that the difference between those two is the storytelling. Anyone can grab their iPhone and a gimbal and film their buddy's wedding and be a videographer. but to take that same camera, that same gimbal, and put a story behind it and get talent on level and putting lights in and being able to bring all of that together. That is the filmmaking side of that.
I agree. There's a great TikTok account out there from a wedding filmmaker, and he is a true filmmaker. He doesn't film typical wedding videos, but Porter Family of Five, fantastic.
Oh no, that guy's insane.
He's nuts.
Oh, I mean,
he's awesome. Though.
Yeah, no,
I'd love to be where you're at one day.
The level of production that he puts into a wedding, those people really are buying an experience from him.
Oh yeah, he does like premieres.
I mean, he's next level. And again, that's a filmmaker doing a videographer's job.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's taking...
You have to have the client to want to do that. Around here, if I go around charging $10,000 for a full, even $7,000 for a full filmmaking experience of your wedding, I ain't getting no clients. You got to have the clientele for that.
Well, and so that actually, I was going to ask you, so how, as a business owner and a videographer, how do you draw the line between that filmmaker videographer?
So for me, I've been hired to do a few films that I would say. Now, none of them are going to be in theaters anytime soon. They're marketing pieces and stuff like that. But there's a real story that's a part of it. There was large amounts of pre-production and stuff like that. The last one I did was for a sport called fling golf up in Capon Springs, West Virginia. Beautiful place, but I went and filmed kind of this awareness piece for this new up-and-coming sport. A lot of fun, and it was really cool to be able to kind of put my filmmaking muscles to a marketing piece, which is generally a social media. That's generally videography, you know. But my clients, there's a great quote by Walt Disney. He said, "We don't make movies to make more money. We make money to make more movies." Yeah. And that is a great way to describe my business.
Yeah,
my clients, I love them to death. Some of them are lifelong friends. But I mean, the goal is to make movies. The goal is to make films. And whether that's films I create or that's films, one of us creates or anything like that, or I get paid to do from a client, that's the goal.
Gotcha. I take a little bit of a different approach. Obviously, I don't operate a videography company full time anymore. I stepped away from that. Just the work that you have to put in on each of those, it just is a lot. And it was more than I was willing to commit to the small businesses. I just didn't find that I was adding enough value to the landscape. But I still need to make the money to film the projects. Sure. You've got to fund this stuff somehow. And not everybody is going to necessarily have those opportunities, but I think you got to maximize your time. You've got to be able to plan. You've got to be able to execute that plan. And then you've got to be confident to follow through with that execution.
Funding is one of those things we were talking about, not having the resources that large markets do. It's hard to get funding in the first place, but then you say you're coming from a place like I live in Nitro, West Virginia.
For sure.
That they may not say it, but that takes a hit on the representation of a proposal.
You lose aura points,
right? When I say I'm from Atlanta or I'm from LA or Chicago, Houston, those guys, if you put, I would venture to say if you put two directors head to head, one from Nitro, West Virginia, and one from LA, I'd say the LA one.
I think that...
I don't know that for sure.
I think that maybe if you're stacking paper to paper, I think that's one important thing with a portfolio, being able to build that up. Yeah. Because, again, if you're looking video to video, I think that gets a little closer. Yeah. And being able to bridge that gap. Yep. Because are you going to get in front of Steven Spielberg to pitch a movie anytime soon? Probably not.
Probably not in your lifetime.
No, but we could probably get in front of people to pitch smaller scale. Yep. But when we do that, we have to be ready. Yep. We have to be prepared to deliver. We have to be prepared to give them something for their money, even if it's federal, even if it's, grant, private, however, you have to follow through on this stuff. Could you tell me a little bit about how following through has helped you kind of get off the ground?
Yeah, so there's a saying that's pretty common in the film industry: "Shut up and shoot."
Okay.
So yeah, just coming up with a plan and following through is huge because you can plan all day, you can get planning paralysis all you want, but the moment that you let that impact your level of creativity and your ability to create, it's the moment you go from. It's the moment you go from a director, filmmaker to a producer, or someone that's planning rather than shooting. And my first film, it was all my friends. Shout out to all my friends, but we filmed like 12-hour days for like 7 days in a row, snowing temperatures, outdoor shoots. But it was a learning experience, and it was just following through on what I'd spent the last previous months planning. So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think that.
How about you? What kind of stories you got for me?
I mean, for me, as far as executing and following through, I've just been persistent. I've not given up. I've wanted to do this for a few years now, and so every spare dollar I've had is just went into fixing this little problem I had on the last shoot, or, man, I didn't like the way this executed. So it's just been about always investing in getting better, always committing time to sharing, my experiences with others, even if it is half-baked, because I'm still figuring things out myself. Sure. Being a self-taught videographer.
It's a never-ending learning experience.
Yeah, of course. And I think that that's something that draws creatives in themselves, being able to constantly learn, being able to constantly improve on what you're doing.
So you said every spare dollar. We're going to go off script here. What's your wife have to say about that?
She will not listen to this episode.
It's the first episode.
But no, I mean, that's the challenge,
Balancing the family life.
Balancing it, taking risk. I mean, that's a big part of what we're doing here is taking risks. Yep, and yeah, I've never really seen it as spending money. I've always ever seen it as an investment. Some of those investments pay off, some of them don't. I've got a closet full of investments that didn't, and slowly trying to make the other ones work. But again, that's videography. That's problem solving. Right. And problem solving, again, I think something that draws a lot of people into something like this. Yeah. You get to work hands-on, and you're not welding.
Yeah. So this podcast is about the Appalachian creative industry as a whole. What industries? We're talking about film, but what other industries could benefit from this?
I see opportunities in this for marketers, for people that are trying to learn how to integrate video into their workflow. Maybe photographers that are looking to step out, or they're looking to transition. They're wanting to do more film photography. They're wanting to see how does that light bounce differently and utilize resources. I think there's room for actors and actresses to learn. I think there's room for just about anyone.
Business owners. I mean, we're going to be talking about. Yeah. How many years have you worked in sales?
So I'm coming up on 15 years of sales and hospitality experience. I've sold my whole life. And so that's something I think video is important for, being able to get a word out. Yep. Whether you're trying to sell a product or you're trying to sell an idea, utilizing those resources. And video in 2024 is pretty important. Yeah. And business, the first time I utilized video was for sales. I was doing walk-around videos at a car lot, and it was something I had to do as a part of my workflow, but I was the one who took and stepped it up. I was the one who learned how to use mics and this and that, and not everybody's a self-starter like that. So
I mean, really anybody that has an interest in a creative field, I mean, you could benefit. So a thing that we say a lot, and a thing that really got us started on this podcast is shut up and shoot. Mm-hmm. So, looking at, camera 2 here, what do you think is the most beneficial, sentence, the most beneficial thing you could say to someone who maybe has a script, or maybe someone who wants to do this or wants to do that?
So my favorite piece of advice that I've ever received, it's not what you want, it's the consumer. And so that's spoken by a feller named Joe Dirt. And so I think about that whenever I'm telling a story, whenever I'm trying to convey something. I don't think about how I'm going to tell it. I think about how the audience is going to hear it. Yeah. I think about how the audience is going to receive that. I think about who my audience is.
Yeah.
Because not every message is for everybody.
That's true.
And so I try to keep that in mind. Because while I may really enjoy one thing, the person that wants to hear what I'm telling them may want to see something completely different.
Yeah. And today, actually, Carson is our producer. Carson and I were talking about shots that we have always wanted to get. Mm-hmm. Just single shots that we'll probably never be able to get because there's never going to be a paid circumstance for that short of a big budget film.
For sure.
So, like, I would love to get, I don't know if you've seen the Bourne Ultimatum, the Bourne movies. There's a scene where Matt Damon's girlfriend dies and she's, like, floating away in a dark abyss in the water. Like, always wanted to do that with some harsh light and have an actress just floating away with stuff unfurling. I'm never going to shoot that. I don't know. Maybe a scuba company would want that one, but like that's probably one of those. But that stretches that creative muscle that you really want to get going. So there's a balance between the stuff, your ambitions, your passion projects, and the stuff that pays the bills.
Yeah, that's art and execution. Art is awesome, but again, you have to execute every day, and every single day, you're not going to have a beautiful model who's going to come on set and be willing to drown.
Go underwater.
Be willing to drown for 5 hours for you to get the perfect shot.
Yeah.
And so we have to be reasonable in our expectations.
But if you're out there, you can message the podcast. I can't pay you very well, but make a good shot.
No, and I'm really guilty for not enjoying movies and TV anymore because I'll see a cool shot and instead of saying, "Oh man, this story is great," I'm thinking, "Oh man, they had a dolly cam and there was probably this people."
It's hard for me to watch movies now.
I have to, and I have to like, hey, you want to know how they did that?
Yeah,
like
I'm
trying to like.
Becca hates it. I love you, babe.
Oh, it's a drone. It's not ever a drone, okay? But I guess that's the easy one. Everyone's like, "Oh, you can do the drone for that."
You can.
A drone is extremely niche.
It's super loud.
No one understands that.
There's a TikTok bit going around right now about the sound of those 70 millimeter IMAX cameras.
Oh, there's insane.
And I can't. That's loud, but a drone with all that wind too. That'd be tough.
But being able to know where to draw the line between art and paying the bills.
Yeah.
Which is tricky when you're a small town creator with a ambition and a family.
Yeah. Small town creators, less money, so your services are going to be less than someone offering them in bigger markets. But all the costs for making a movie are still just about the same.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where, it's important for us when we are working with those paid clients, even if it's a $200, $300 shoot, we have to deliver them value. We can't just as videographers deliver them some hodgepodge video that doesn't convey a message. Like, we have to take it serious, because if we take it serious, and they see a return, well, guess what? You get to charge a little more the next time.
Exactly.
Because they made a little money.
And you know what a great way to charge more is? Get a matte box so they see the square.
Oh, the matte box that's a $50 add-on. I mean,
and that's the only reason I got my matte box.
I actually heard a top handle it actually adds another $0. Yeah. Little things like that. That's why this podcast is so important, because I couldn't tell you how many times I showed up without these things, and I had to shoot a video.
Yeah. And it had to look good.
Yeah.
They pay you a little, but they have high expectations.
But I still had a great time on the shoot. I still learned how to utilize what I didn't have and make it work. And I refer to what I do as guerrilla filmmaking, because sometimes it's a backpack and sweat,
making it work,
and make it happen. And I think there's something to that, and being able to go out into the woods with your buddies and being able to shoot a video like your first one. That's where it starts.
With no food.
No.
Pay your actors and crew.
And I think
feed them.
That's probably something that holds a lot of people back. But find a sponsor. Find a local restaurant that would be willing to say, I'll give you $50 worth of chicken.
Yeah.
Shoot them some promo stuff. Find you a restaurant and trade.
Trade-offs are a huge part of kind of my business. I've done trade-offs for oil changes.
Yeah.
I've done trade-offs for like car detailing.
Yeah.
Trade-offs are huge, and you got to pay the bills, but sometimes that portfolio is going to help, and maybe the client can't pay, but they can give you a little something on the back end there.
Well, for sure. And and again, in 2024, the economic landscape is what it is. So we have to, as creators, get creative. We've got to make the most of what we've got. If you've got a DSLR and a couple lenses, you can still go out there and offer something to these businesses.
Well, even now, the iPhones that, people watching this that might say, I can't do it, I don't have a big camera. Mm-hmm. Those things shooting in law. I
tell everyone, what should I, they see my fancy camera, what should I get? Shoot with your iPhone.
iPhone 15.
If you're not shooting with your phone, you're not going to shoot with an FX3. You're not going to shoot with an A7 IV. You're just not going to do those things. Yeah. So why put yourself out there?
All right, you brought up A7 III or FX3 A7 IV.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have an episode on gear and stuff later in the
mm-hmm.
the pod. But give me your must-haves if you were to build out your perfect kit.
I would say your light, Mike. Get a good light.
Give me brand.
I'm not a brand guy per se, but get a 600 from Aperture, get a 100 maybe from Aperture, get you a good Rode mic or a Sennheiser mic, an external recorder, get you an H2, something along those lines from Zune.
Yep.
And then shoot.
What camera are you picking?
Honestly, nowadays, if I was just getting started, the ZV-E10. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
That is so much capability. For under $1,000, you can get a camera with 4K capabilities, 24 frames per second. You get S-Log 3.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so maybe start with something like that. If you have a little bit more money, FX30 is fantastic. I mean, you can do so much with something like that.
One of our cameras is an FX30.
Mm-hmm. No, and of course, I'm going to say Sony because I like Sony. I like what they're doing. Yeah. I'll think that from an entry level standpoint, it's a good place to start and grow because there's the compatibility as you step up.
What's your dream rig? Your dream, you could put, and no money is of no issue. You could fill a bag with what you wanted for one scene. You're light, audio camera, lens. And a piece of grip, dolly.
I would go with probably a Dana dolly would be fantastic. I wish I had one of those, but they're a pain.
You don't have to put $1,200 to drop on that.
You need a team of people. It's not buying the rig; it's setting it up.
No, I need $1,200 for the crew.
Yeah, that's. I just don't want to have my buddies come on and do that.
Yeah.
Because that's heavy work. But Dana dolly would be important. If I was going to go for a dream camera, I don't know, maybe a Sony Venice, something like that. Of course, Ari's doing really good things. You don't never need to own an Ari because if you're working on that project, they're going to rent you one.
Yeah.
Reds are great. Reds are crushing right now.
The problem with Reds is you get the camera
and every little dongle and cable,
all the gear that goes along with the monitor, all the cables, and it's all at a premium.
Yeah, and it's just not feasible. And I wouldn't want to get hung up on any of that stuff. I would say if I was just getting started, I would want a 4 camera, 24 frames per second, 4K, 24 frames per second, and external mic. Wireless would be fine. A set of Rode mics, a Rode pod, Rode. What do they call that? Little shotgun mic on top.
Oh yeah,
and then
the Rode video mic.
Yeah, you get a video mic, a wireless setup. Maybe you got $3,000 in the kit.
Yeah.
Maybe not an Aperture light, but you get a good 300 from GVM. Yeah. You get a 100 from newer. Just get started. Get a light. Doesn't have to be the best light. Get a light.
My first film was actually shot on a Sony A6400.
Yeah.
$900 some odd dollars.
Yep.
It wasn't with a kit lens, but it might as well have been.
Yeah.
And then a couple Amaran Cobb 60Bs, the bicolor lights, and then I later added a 300D to my, or 100D to my kit. And I try not to get caught up in the lighting because lighting is great, but right now I don't have a purpose to recreate the sun. I would love a 1200D. I don't need one.
No.
I could probably use a 300D, 300V, something like that. But I got two 60s and one 100. The 60s are bicolor, the 100s daylight balance. That does what you need.
Yeah.
As I get more into more narrative stuff, I'll probably go out and try to recreate the sun a little bit. But
it's funny how you have to recreate the sun and then put it behind a bunch of layers of diffusion.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I started on a Canon M50.
Yeah.
Again, I had 4K.
Yeah.
It was the crop at 4K.
I shot a wedding on a Canon 80D.
Yeah.
And it was not 4K. It was 1080.
Yeah.
And the reason I switched to Sony was the low light. Because I shot a wedding with that, and it was so grainy. I had to pump the ISO on it.
I didn't
look great.
Menus, but
yeah, it didn't look great. So I went ahead and ordered the A6400.
Yeah.
And now they have the I've been seeing it all over TikTok, the A6700s.
Yes.
And those things are sharp.
Yeah. But again, you can get into filmmaking under $1,000. You know, so the ceiling is a lot lower than it has been before.
Yeah, it is.
Especially when, again, this was free. You can put a mic on this for $40 on Amazon.
Yeah. And if you're just getting started, you know, the mic is great and all that, and you want it to sound good. Mm-hmm. But in reality, if you want to be a director, you block your shot. Mm-hmm. The Blackmagic Design camera app on an iPhone is great. You go around with that. You can throw that on a gimbal, or you can just do it handheld. As a director, you want to direct a film. Mm-hmm. You don't need to make the film a cinematic masterpiece because the odds are no one's going to see it.
For sure.
50 family and friends on YouTube.
Maybe.
If you're lucky. I made my first short film, has 100% copyrighted music. It starts out with Rooster with Alice in Chains, you know, like it's all copyrighted, but it's because I just wanted to get it out there.
Yeah.
And then after that, you know, you are always going to know more later down the road.
Yeah.
So get it out there, shut up and shoot. Don't get planning paralysis.
The benefit of hindsight
is
fantastic. But the truth of the matter is, it can always be better. You can't be stuck staring at a screen waiting for it to be better.
Yep.
You eventually have to deliver. Eventually, you have to hit send. Eventually, your client is going to be done saying, "Where's that video at?" You're going to have to say, "It's done. It is complete." What would you say is the biggest hurdle, aside from the expensive kit, in getting into filmmaking from small town creative standpoint?
My biggest hurdle personally, minus the gear, is the people. It takes a lot of people to run a film set. So if we're just talking about, if we're taking anything of expense away, so the expense of the cast and crew, if that's all gone, you still have to find somebody who knows who's a gaffer. You got to find somebody who knows lights. You got to find somebody who knows grip.
Yeah.
We actually have the fortune of being close to Marshall University. They just have a new filmmaking program, but the college kids know a lot, but sometimes they don't. And you don't know what you don't know. It's not their fault. They're still learning. So like finding those experienced crew members, and then, you know, well-rounded actors and people that can actually take direction. Those are hard to come by.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the best movies is a big bowl of soup. It's the best soup. Yeah. The best movies have the best ingredients. Yeah. They've got the best light. They've got the best camera. They've got the best composer. You know, when you've got Quincy Jones laying down the track, you've got a banger. Yeah. You don't have to worry about getting, you know, Sigourney Weaver to sign on. She's there.
Yeah. So my last film I did I did. I had a composer compose the score and all that. Richie Mays, shout out Richie. And it was just heat. I got it pressed on vinyl. Very expensive to do that. Do not recommend. But there's still a mistake on the vinyl, so I didn't get it for the whole crew. But yeah, the score is important. The music's important. And, we're going to get into all this stuff during the course of this podcast. We're going to get into how to make a film. We're going to get into some gear recs. We're going to get into how to get clients, how to keep clients. We're going to talk about how you can continue to learn as a budding creative. And then, of course, we're going to have fun. We're going to talk. We're going to do some movie reviews and stuff like that. And and
I want to talk about how to market, how to navigate this landscape, how to get funding, how to meet people that are in this industry.
Network is key.
Yeah, well, and I hope that we're able to use this podcast in collaboration with the Film Horizons Foundation, grow the film club, grow that community, and continue getting the most out of the people here, because there's a lot of talent. And I think that, for me, confidence is going to be that big hurdle. And we've got to give the people the confidence to say, I can go out and do this. Yeah. I'm not going to be stuck waiting on the right camera or waiting on someone else to come pull me across the finish line.
That's the key.
Yeah.
That's the key.
So.
All right, before we sign off, Carson, unmute your mic. Here we go. We are filming this 2 days before WVU at Penn State at WVU. Mm-hmm. Jerry, I don't know. Are you much of a football guy?
I dabble.
All right. Bro, what are you talking about? You just did a fantasy draft.
Yeah, I mean...
Who'd you pick? Who's your first pick?
To be fair, fantasy's not real.
Okay.
Carson.
Yeah.
Carson's our producer. I've said that already. Carson, what's your score? Who's winning? Who's losing by how much?
56-27 Penn State.
Oh, I hope you're
It's
wrong.
a beatdown.
That's bad. Hey, I've been to those. Yeah. I went to WVU. I've been to those beatdowns.
Yeah.
I like WV too, so it kind of
hurts you to say that one.
Yeah.
Jerry?
It's actually going to be 42-38 with the Mountaineers pulling off a overtime victory.
Yeah, you're funny.
He said 42-38. I'm not going to go 42. I'm going to say it's going to be a 24-21. I think it's going to be defensive. I think Penn State's going to hold us back. I think we're going to get I think we're going to put it through the uprights. WVU are going to put it through the uprights with about 30 seconds left.
Hey.
All right.
We're all going to be wrong. It's going to be a tie or something. But this episode releases after that game. So if we're right, it was an actual guess. It was not when it was released.
All right. Well, we appreciate you tuning in to the first episode of the Appalachian Creative Podcast. We'll tune in next time.
Yes, sir.
If you can, like, subscribe, follow our socials. Any help, support that we can get, greatly appreciated. Until next time.
See you guys.
Wow.